Happy Wednesday, everybody. I just wanted to do an update on the GP60 DCC conversion. All right, so I went ahead and got all this done and made sure everything worked. And despite this being an older model at slow speeds, it is still pretty quiet. And so I'm rather happy with the way this turned out. At higher speeds though, the motor gets obnoxiously loud, and maybe in the future, after I do some more break-in on this, we will go through a technique from some of the older Atlases where you remove one of the bearing blocks. But for now, I want to go over kind of what I did on this to make it a functioning DCC conversion. This GP20 back here I have not done yet, and this will be a future project for me, and I will do this was more of a proof of concept, and this one's going to be a little more difficult, so I will actually go ahead and do the videoing. But it is a good demonstration and visual demonstrator, I guess, of some of the stuff that I had to do to this one to make it function properly. As you can see here, between the frames, there is kind of a cog here. That is what the motor tabs interface with. And all I had to do was take a drill bit. The size that I used was 3/16. I removed the plastic spacers and then screwed the body back together, of course with no components inside it, and just drilled a 3/16 hole through the frame. If you're straight and you can do this with a either a jig or some sort of, I had to put this in a vise and just really carefully tried to drill it straight through. If you're using something like a drill press, you might be able to align it properly. However, I just drilled through this side and then aligned it to the bottom bearing block and drilled through until it basically popped through there. It was slightly off center, but it did the trick. The bearing blocks were completely drilled out. Once that was done, there was nothing for the motor to interface with, so I was readily capable of doing the DCC conversion at that point. The top of the frame looked much like this, and note that the front of these generally are slightly higher in the frame than the rear. That was the case for this as well. All I did was take a set of calipers and scratch a score line across the side of this at the depth that I thought it should be, split the frame, and took it to a bench grinder and carefully ground back and forth until the entirety of that area was ground away. And then back here I continued to go down a little bit deeper. The reason for this is when the DCC board is installed, the microchip hangs slightly behind the board and it allows it to sit a little more flush. All relatively simple to do. That's just done with a regular bench grinder, nothing special. You will need to come in and remove the burrs. You can carefully do that on the bench grinder. However, I just used a regular file. This is pot metal. It files very easily and probably clogs up the file. So if you're a kid, don't let your dad catch you using the file. But it's also an important component of up here. See how the gap right here needs to be ground out. If you're careful about it, you can use the grinder to take out most of the material, and then you come in with the file after the fact and carefully file it smooth. After that relatively simple conversion, you have to clip the motor tabs off. That's easy to do. I just bend them back and forth until they break off, and then at least with these particular motors, I found that solder does not stick real well, so you have to be kind of careful. But you take the small wires and solder them to the leads. I then just took, which I should have found something better. I really need to get myself a Dremel with a small milling tool. I just scored the engine here with my soldering iron just to give enough space for the wire to pass through right there. And then they come up right through the hole that we drilled earlier. I also went ahead and beveled this edge right here with the grinder. It gives just a little extra space for the wires to sit down in there. After that, the board just slides right in, just like it should. This is a Lock Pilot Micro Direct, like you would see on the new modern Atlases. I went ahead and shortened the wires and just lightly soldered them to the leads. I will probably open this back up and switch those around. The motor runs the opposite direction that I would like it to with the lights. Easy enough to change the settings, but I like to leave these as standard as I can, so should I decide to sell this or whatnot, it's easy for the end user to set up. Capped on tape across the bottom of this, and then once you've verified that this runs the motor, go ahead and reinstall all the components and capped on tape each of your motor leads just so you don't accidentally short out against the frame. Once that is installed, because we don't have rear clips, you could use double-sided tape to hold it down. However, I want to be able to get in to do maintenance on this, and I found that a piece of foam from handrails fits rather nicely in the gap between the frame and the decoder. Sorry, this is a little finicky here. And there we are. The body, when it comes down, kind of pushes that down just a little bit. And so far, I have to say I have been rather happy with how this looks. The body, of course, is an old Walthers body, and the cab glows really bad. However, I'm really hoping that I can turn this into, and then I go ahead and break handrails off. Great. Into a secondary unit as part of a switcher pair, so the light won't be on all the time anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the layout, and we will shoot some run-by videos so you can see the motor and how loud it is in all states. And like I said, really happy with how this DCC conversion turned out.